I was watching this Andrew Tate video about like a video in this course, and he was talking about how like you need to have a villain version of yourself who does all the things that an ideal version of you would do. And he didn't say ideal version, that's just what I came up with, but it eventually essentially it's like you write out a villain, right? And you write out all the things that you know you should be doing that you don't do, but essentially he would be doing, right? And so I just call it ideal state versus real state. And if you actually do this exercise, it's so surprising, because I was like, you know what, let me just do it. I have time on my hand, whatever, right? And you write out like, you know, your name, villain, and you write out all the things you know you should be doing and you don't do. And this list came out to be so much longer than I thought it would be. And I was a little bit baffled, but I was like, you know what, this is true, because all these things I wish I was doing, but I don't do. And it had me consciously aware of all these things now, right? Because essentially the version of you that you want to be and current version of you, the only thing that's like different is like the barrier between you guys is this resistance, right? So you need to understand why that resistance exists. So like if your ideal version of you starts businesses, talks to girls that he likes, goes to the gym, right, whatever the case may be for you specifically, right, the next time you don't do those things that you know you should be doing, you can consciously be aware of all the things that are said to yourself. So like if you are in the gym and you see a girl that you like, and you know that the villain version of yourself would go and talk to that girl, what are you saying to yourself that's causing you not to do that? So it's like you'd be like, you know, maybe most of the time, 99% of the time, you're just giving yourself some bullshit excuse. Most of the time you're not doing the things that you know you should be doing. It's always some excuse in between you guys, right? And that excuse or excuses or whatever is just the friction between you and your ideal state. And so you have to really notice about what you're saying. Maybe you tell yourself, well, I don't have a pump, or I don't feel like doing that, or you know, just not today, or like you start noticing how like stupid or like how invalid the thing that you say to yourself, and it almost annoys you, because now and that like set of that like sense of annoyance, or like you know how like silly you sound to even yourself, makes you just want to go do the thing, because you know the better version of you would have done it, and you want to eventually become that better version. So you know all you have to do is get over a set of excuses or whatever the case may be to get to your ideal self. And if you could do it in one aspect, you can do it in other aspects, because you're solving this one thing that your villain does. Now you can tackle another one and another one, because now you know that you're consciously aware of the things that are said that's keeping you from being your ideal self. And when you do this sort of exercise, you're not supposed to do it in sort of like goals, if that makes sense, or outcomes. So if your villain version of yourself doesn't make like, don't make it unrealistic. Like don't say like he makes $1 million a day starting right now. Like no, like it has to be in inputs. So you don't, your villain version of yourself doesn't like, you're not gonna write, oh, he makes $1 million a day, he pipes every girl he sees, oh, and he has 10 million followers tomorrow. Like those don't make sense, and they're too quantifiable, right? Like they're too involved with numbers. You have to almost make them inputs. So like don't say he gets every girl he wants. Say he talks to girls that he sees. Like it has to be inputs. It has to be like he starts businesses based off the ideas he has, not he has a $10 million business. He goes to the gym, not, you know, he puts on 220 pounds of lean muscle. Like not only do you not make unrealistic, try not to use numbers, and only make it based off inputs, based off the outcomes that you want. So if you want to be, you know, a millionaire, and you think you're gonna do it through business, say that your input should be he starts business ideas, or he works on his business. If it's like you want to get in shape, say he goes to the gym, not he's 180 pounds lean muscle in a year. Like don't make them, just make them simple inputs, things that you can do on a daily, like think, can you do this on a daily basis for a continuous amount of time? If you can, then it's a good input. It's he goes to the gym, he works on his business, like, you know, he works on his ideas, he talks to girls that he finds attractive, like things that you can do when the situation arrives, not like, and it shouldn't have any result tied to it. It shouldn't be like he gets into business and he makes $1 million. He talks to a girl and he always gets her number. He goes to the gym and he becomes the strongest one in there. Like don't tie it to a result. Tie it simply to what it is that you have to do. And once you get your whole life, not whole life, actually no, yeah, your whole life tied to this inputs, your life becomes so much more fulfilling, because you're not basing your success and your happiness and your fulfillment based off outcomes, which only will last very little, like in terms of dopamine. Like say you have a goal of making $1 million. Maybe it takes you 5 years, maybe it takes you 10 years, whatever the case may be. Once you make that $1 million, you're going to eventually be like, okay, now I'll make a 10 million. Once you make the 10 million, like, okay, now I'll make 100 million, right? When you always achieve goals, you realize, like, if you've had this before, you know what I'm talking about. Like, if you've achieved some goal of yours, once you reach the goal, like, it feels good for a little bit, then you just move the goalpost, and then you move the goalpost, and you always just keep moving the goalpost. And so the goal is to always have an input. The goal should be to have inputs, not to have certain outcomes. And this is something Alex Hormozi preaches, and I love that the way he said it, because it makes so much more sense. Like, he talks about 3 things. It's like, the goal isn't to be in business, it's to stay in business. The goal isn't to be fit, it's to stay fit. The goal isn't to be married, it's to stay married. So what he means is, like, if you were in shape for like 3 months of your life because you went to the gym for those 3 months, that's not impressive over the course of your like 70, 80 year life. It's like, if you stayed fit for a long, like 50, 60 years, it's like, wow, that's really impressive. It's not impressive to be in business, like, just to, like, anybody could start an LLC, anybody could start up a business, whatever the case may be, but to actually stay in business, to continuously make money over a long period of time is what's impressive. It's not impressive to get married once. It's impressive if you got married and you stayed married for 30 years or whatever the case may be. So when you start thinking in these sort of like inputs and instead of outcomes, and you don't think in terms of like goal completion, but really just reaching goals eventually, and the goal is like set because it's made off a set of inputs, like I stayed in business for X amount of years, or I stayed fit for X amount of years, whatever the case may be, rather than I was fit for these 3 months and then I fell out of shape and I stopped going to the gym. It's like completing a goal once makes no sense. If it's like a worthwhile goal, like, you know, the big ones, you know, money wise, health, wealth, and relationship wise, those are the 3 big ones. And so you want to really just acclimate your mind to having certain inputs and ways of thinking so that you can become the full version of yourself, the highest potential, and just be in your ideal state. Because if you're in your ideal state, think about how good life can be if you were just able to do all the things that you know you're supposed to be doing. And even if it wasn't like you couldn't fit everything in one day, you knew when the situations came up, you were in the right state of mind, you did the right thing, and you didn't overthink about it, or you didn't regret it. Like, you ever like see a girl and you're like, oh my god, she's so cute, blah, 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 and you never see her again, like, damn, I should have went and talked to her, this and that. And it's like, now you're overthinking about it, and then you somewhat regret it, or whatever the case may be. And you know, with time, things pass, or whatever the case may be, and like, maybe it wouldn't have worked out, whatever. But it's like, if you were the guy who actually just went and talked to her, you would have knew. Like, it's always better to, if you, in worst case scenario, you got rejected, it would be better to get rejected than to wonder forever, right? Because at least now you know. And it should always be like that. So always take the shot. You miss 100% of shots you don't take. Be the best version of yourself, which is like, you know, in this case, the villain. I know it sounds a little bit corny or whatever, but it's just to like lay out the ideas. What would my villain version of myself do? What would my ideal version of self do? Same thing, right? It's just having it all listed out makes you see it all that much more clear. And so you just need to get acclimated to doing that.